Good day, educators. Today I'm going to be speaking to you on instructional design. I want to say a big thank you to Ms. Oluwatosin and the entire body of the global educators community. I am Ms. Dairo and we will be talking on instructional design. Now, what is instructional design? Instructional design is like crafting a roadmap for learning. It's like you're traveling, and in order to get to your destination, you're already crafting out the best path to follow just for you to get to your destination, for you to have a smooth ride. That is how instructional design is. It's a roadmap. It's like crafting a roadmap for learning. It is the thoughtful planning of lessons. Thoughtful planning of lessons by putting into consideration the learner's need and the learner's learning style to aid better comprehension and retention. Meaning, for instructional design to be, you have to consider the learner's need, and the learner's style, because the major aim, your end goal, is for that particular child to have a better comprehension, and not just a better comprehension, but also a good retention. Now, we're going to look at examples of instructional methods. So, we have a long list here: interactive textbooks, learning games, educational mobile apps, songs, online courses, simulations, blended learning environments, educational games, field studies and observation, problem based learning, engaging worksheets. Now, aside from what we have here, we have a long list of instructional methods. So these are the different parts, these are the different ways you can follow, get that lesson to that particular learner. Now let's look at the key element of instructional design. What are those things that are really important in instructional design? What are those things that you must consider? Those things you must put in place when you talk about instructional design. Now, one of it is understanding your learner. Like I said, it's just like you're going on a journey and you don't even know where you're going to, and you're just entering the road. You don't have a destination in mind. That's not possible. So the first element of instructional design is understanding the learner, because the learner is at the center of it all. Everything you're doing is because of that child. So the first thing you need to do is to understand the child. You need to tailor content to suit the child's learning needs. So you need to understand the child's learning needs, or the child's learning style, or the child things that interest the child. Understand the child's abilities. These are the first things that you should put in place. Now, two, you need to set clear learning objectives. What is it that you want? So you've understood the child, you've known the child you're preparing this for. Now, what is the objective? What is the end goal? Now, whatever objective you're setting should be specific, should be measurable, should be achievable, relevant, and time bound. For example, you have a child who is still getting used to letter sounds, and then you want to set clear learning objective for that child, and you're saying within a month, I want this child to be able to read a primary 4 textbook. No, that's not an achievable objective. That's not an achievable objective. What that does, that kind of objective just puts you and the child under undue pressure. So you understand the child. That's why understanding the learner comes first, because your understanding of the learner is what will guide you in setting this clear learning objective. And you should put in mind that it must be SMART objectives. Now, the next one is incorporate engagement strategies. So whatever it is you're doing, whatever instructional method you're using, you must be able to add elements that increase engagement, be it songs, the simulations, the worksheet, the textbook, whatever method you're using. There should be an element of engagement. We have children these days who have very short attention span. You don't want a situation where a child finds learning boring, where a child feels forced to learn. You want a situation where the learning environment is favorable. The learning environment, pushes the child to have this intrinsic motivation to learn. The next is feedback mechanism. Now, when you're using instructional method, you should have a feedback mechanism. Encourage self-assessment and reflection for continuous improvement. So you've used a particular method for that child. You should sit back and think, okay, is this working? So definitely you would have give it maybe a couple of months, maybe a month or 2 months, and you're thinking, is this working? Is this child growing? Is this child improving? Do I need to introduce another strategy? Is there something new I'm observing about this child that I need to take note of? So feedback mechanism is very important. You can also get feedback from the learner. You can ask, okay, how do you feel about this lesson? How do you feel about this method? How do you feel about what we learned today? Next, we have adaptability. Now, you need to be very flexible. There's nothing like, okay, last 2 years, that was a strategy I used, so I have to use it again. No, people change, children change, things change, our environment is changing. So you should be flexible and you should be able to adapt to learners' progress and feedback. Next is use of technology. We are in a digital age, so you cannot afford to just stick to the traditional method of learning. You need to integrate relevant educational technology tools and resources, leverage on online platforms, interactive content, and collaborative tools. We have a lot of learning platforms available. All you need to do is to search for them and use them in your classes. Next, we have real world application. Gone are those days where we just go abstract with our lessons. You should be able to connect the theoretical concept to real world application. So the child is not just knowing 2 + 2 = 4. The child understands that if I go to the market and I'm with 50 naira and I buy something of 30 naira, I should be expecting 20 naira as my change. Real life application. So when you go into the classroom to teach, you should ask yourself, what I want to teach, how can I bring in real world application? So you should include practical examples, include case studies, include relevant examples that would help the child connect the lesson with events that happen in their everyday lives. Next, inclusive and diversity. In your classroom, the learners in your classroom are not the same. They come from different environments and they have different abilities. Your classroom, your lesson presentation should be able to accommodate all type of learners represented in your classroom. You need to acknowledge and accommodate the different learning styles and create an inclusive learning environment. No child in your class should feel left out. You should be able to recognize every child in your class. Irrespective of their difference, you'll be able to recognize every child in your class and ensure that they are being accommodated and they feel safe in the classroom. Now, let's look at the steps in instructional design. The first, you need to define your learning objectives. We've talked about that. You need to understand your learner. That's very important. You need to select instructional methods. So you're not just going into the classroom blank with no plan. No. So before the lesson, you've understood your learners, you have your objectives. So you're asking yourself, how can I achieve this with this learner I have? How can I achieve this? Do I need to bring in songs? That's why understanding your learner is very important. I have a learner who loves Bluey. Bluey is the name of a cartoon. So what I did was I said, okay, how can I bring in Bluey into the lesson to ensure that this child is learning? So that's how you select instructional method based on the child's interest, based on the child's learning style, based on the child's learning need, and based on the objectives you have in mind. Then you develop the content. This comes in step by step. The first step is not to develop the content. You have to put all these things in place before you develop your content. All this will guide you. The moment you miss one step, you just find out that your content is lacking. So you need all this to be able to develop your content. Then you incorporate multimedia and assessment. We have engaging pictures, videos, assessment platform. A very good example is Kahoot. Platforms like this gets children excited. They're eager to use them, and trust me, it is very easy to teach an active learner. Once a child is very active in the classroom, excited about learning, it's very easy to connect to that child. Then implement what you have gathered, what you have planned, implement it in your classroom, and be very observant so that you can be able to gather feedback. You can be able to have your data. Is this working? Do I need to change it? We talked about that. So like I would always say, what I have given to you is just a template. It is a template that you need for your instructional design. Follow all the steps that have been listed here. If you go through them, if you follow them, trust me, you would see the difference in your classroom. Thank you once again for this opportunity. I am Ms. Dayo.